Hi, folks. I'm Joe Wesley of J&L Creative Solutions. I want to thank you again for visiting us. For those of us who are visiting us for the first time, thank you. For those who are back to us, I want to thank you even more. And by the way, we do this, I say live, pre-recorded, and I say that deliberately because every now and then we may get some glitches. And if that's the case, that's the fun of doing it in a real time. We want to keep it real. These sessions are not rehearsed, they're not scripted. I say live pre-recorded because we record generally on a Thursday, and then we go public with it sometime down the road. How this works, folks, the challenge is, are you prepared to take the hot seat challenge to discover an ingredient of your secret sauce? And I say that deliberately because really it's only a half an hour. But the point is, each of us have a uniqueness about ourselves that nobody else can lay claim to. And how do you stand out in your business? Well, people can copy or mimic what you do, but they can't fake who you are. And your secret sauce is defined in part by your pastime, favorite on top of that. So again, I'm Joe. Oh, before I forget, remember, this is something we'd like you leave your comments on to. I'll talk more about how that works down the road. So my guest today is
JL, the anti-guru. I call myself the anti-guru because I do the opposite of what the guru is.
I hear that, JL. I appreciate that. I'm going to ask that you turn your volume up just a little bit.
How's that?
That is much better. Thank you. And folks, we're getting some echo here, so I apologize for that. If for some reason it's bothering you, JL, let me know.
No, I don't hear it at all.
Okay. So the concept is, I begin by asking my guests, what's your favorite pastime? Because it goes to their passion. And the passion gives them a unique identity that nobody else can lay claim to. And oftentimes, in fact, it's been almost every time, there's a connection between one's pastime and what they're doing now. Something that's, because there's only one JL, question about it. So, JL, one other thing I have to say, folks, I'll be looking down every now and then. I have a mind like a sieve. I take notes. I have an empty pad right now, and I have a pen that I make notes on. So that would be my download format. So, JL, what got you on your favorite pastime? What might it be? Could you share it with us?
Well, basically what it is, I really like to serve people. But what that equates to is I have a small, well, I call it a mini farm now.
Excuse me, can I interrupt?
Yes.
That I'm going to assume at 3 or 4 years of age, that wasn't foremost in your mind.
No.
So can we go back a little further, perhaps?
We can go back a little further. I have always been a servant of some type.
Okay.
From serving my family members, serving in church. It's just a part of who I am.
Could you give us an example? Say you're 5 years of age. How was your existence in a serving format or manner?
Well, at that time, I was born in a single parent home. I grew up. I was the only boy in the family, and ironically, a lot of people say, "Well, you were pampered and catered to." Well, the exact opposite is what happened. I took on more of a covering role and looked after my sisters.
How many siblings? How many sisters?
I have 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you the oldest, the youngest? How did you fit in there?
I'm kind of in the middle. I have 1 older sister, and then I have 2 younger sisters.
Okay. Yeah. So you were sort of the caretaker. Your mother is single parent and working concept. Okay.
Yeah. So she was working a lot, and my older sister, she just wasn't interested in, because there's 7 years difference between us. Mm-hmm. So by the time I came along, she was into her stuff, and you would think that she would take over that mother role, but she didn't. So I took on kind of the quote unquote mother role, father role.
You're right.
My younger sisters, and eventually looking after my older sister when I got older,
right,
as a teenager.
So that's what got you in the habit of that, and I get that totally, because my mother also was, although this is not about me, but she was the provider, the care, and the caretaker. So I had to do with the 2 younger sisters, learn to do the cooking and everything else that went along with that. Exactly. So, okay, so 5 years of age, At what time? And I learned this is not about me. What point in time did you start learning to turn the oven on and off safely? Uh,
Oh man, it really at about 7. I mean,
okay,
and the funny thing, I just got finished cutting. I cut grass on the side. And
right.
by the time I was 7 years old, I was cutting grass
Mm,
and I was cooking food. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandmother really was instrumental in teaching me how to cook, how to clean, all these domestic things, and molding my character into the person that I am. I put that on my grandparents. Like I said, spent a lot of time at their house.
right,
I tried to model myself after my grandfather. My grandfather was an exceptional man who cared for his family even after death. He put things in place that took care of us even after he had passed away. So I always say, if I could be half the man that he was, that's pretty good.
I hear that. I hear that. So the concept being just how your earlier life was influenced by the world around you. Did you, as you became now a teenager, were you doing anything differently other than when you say 7 years of age?
Oh, well, by the time I became a teenager, I started getting into trouble, not having a father around to guide me. Even though my grandfather was there, he wasn't in the home.
Right.
And so I started going down the wrong path. I have been involved with law enforcement. I've had lots of things, but that I'm not proud of. But always, no matter what was going on, my mother and grandparents always made sure I went to church. So uh, that religious upbringing, that spiritual upbringing, is what brought me back after like that old scripture where teach a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. So that's definitely me.
Right. And were you involved in the church in what manner? Were
Oh,
you a part of
yeah.
the chorus?
I sang in the choir. We were Methodists, so Methodists are very similar to Catholics. So instead of altar boys, they call us acolytes.
Right.
On the junior usher board as I got older. I served in every capacity possible besides getting in the pulpit. I don't want to do anything like
Right.
whatever. And when the doors opened, we were there.
Okay. Were these things you volunteered for or you were volunteered? It can go either way.
In the beginning, I was volunteered, but after a
Mhm.
while, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed singing in the choir. It just fostered this sense of service, which stems from reading about Christ and how he was a servant, and all of these different things kind of tie in. My spirituality really defines every area of my life.
Okay. I'm a slow rider, folks. I'll be with you in a moment. Okay, so the concept here, if I understand correctly, is that service has been primarily your lifestyle.
Hmm.
And of the things you did you have a particular niche that you really enjoyed versus the others, or was it spread out pretty much uniformly, your activity?
Uh, I would have to say, in the early years, I started working in retail, working in sales, and then eventually, I've always had an entrepreneurial type of thing going on. I never really enjoyed working a job. Now my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, he was one of the founders of Winston Mutual, which was the first black insurance company here in my hometown.
Nice.
Other grandfather founded the first black taxi cab company. So entrepreneurship is kind of in my blood.
Right.
But then after I got out of the retail business, I started doing personal training and that's a little short story. I was overweight, started working out. Some people helped me. I was so grateful that I said, "Hey, I want to do this and help other people." So there we again, serving people. And eventually, I also became a competitive bodybuilder for a while. That was just to feed my ego. I've got a huge ego on top of everything else.
Okay, fair enough. Now, where do you think that comes from?
When I was young, I was the fat kid. I read books. when I was 12 years old, I read the entire encyclopedia from A to Z.
My.
I don't have my glasses on today, but I had glasses so thick I could see what's going on in Africa. I could see air molecules, all that. I was an easy target. And so after a while, I being bullied, I was really sensitive, but respect was important. And once I started gaining my respect and building myself up, my ego just grew along with that.
Okay.
Because I was proud of the ability to, become healthy and do the things that I did, and people started to respect me more rather than beat up on me.
Okay. I hear that. I'll be with you in a moment.
Sure.
So I'm going, as I said to the group earlier before who've come on, that this is unscripted, unrehearsed. I don't have a good recall. I'll be quick to admit that, part of my non-secret sauce. And I make notes, and I initially showed a blank piece of paper. Now it's pretty much the whole board. So I don't have any more questions to ask, so space to ask questions. We're going to flow to the other side of the program here for this half-an-hour session. What got you on the first of all, let me start off by asking you a question from a different format. The anti-guru, you made an allusion to that, but I don't want to talk about that just now. Could you describe exactly what that is?
Well, when I first started my online career, I was in network marketing. And, you hear these terms about the gurus and all of these people who are successful. And but in order to get their secrets, you usually have to pay them, absorbent amounts of money, $5,000, $10,000, whatever. And but I was lucky enough to have some people who kind of took me under their wing and taught me a lot of things. And as I started growing in knowledge, I decided I was going to do the opposite. So I say I'm the anti-guru because I give away more than I sell.
Okay.
Kind of. I don't give away all my secrets. I know what it's like to, you want to be successful, and you're looking for the secrets and the whatever to unlock the key.
Right.
And I knew I didn't have a lot of money starting out, so I said I'm going to serve these people and give them enough that they can move that success needle a little bit, and maybe they can start earning some money. And then when they can afford to pay more, hopefully giving them what I've given them, they'll come back to me and ask me more. And then I can give them more of the things that would help them. But those are the things that I have to charge for, because I can't just give everything away, because then it has no value.
Well, rule number one in business is keep the creditors happy. That's what I live by. So no matter how you phrase it, that's kind of what I'm hearing from you also, ultimately. Right. The concept of it. So how did you discover the path? Well, I see, again, I'm hesitating on myself. Let me do it this way. Because this is live, I'll switch around. First off, let me do a commercial break. That for those who are observing us, again, this is a live pre-record, so you can't leave comments. But by the time you see this, it will be a description section that will be through the YouTube format. We go live simultaneously, live pre-recorded simultaneously to LinkedIn, to Facebook, and we also post to Alignable. So we would ask, leave your opinions, leave your questions. There'll be a description of Mr. JL that you can connect with him. You can get a sense of who he is by looking at his background links, and the same for me. I would ask for those who are visiting us, please leave comments, good, bad, or indifferent. We do audit these comments and we respond back as best we can. Please share with other people. If you leave comments or not, we ask that you subscribe at least to my site, because these do come up in a regular manner and you don't want to miss the notification. But that being said, we'll go back to the non-commercial side, and I'm going to start sharing with you my concept of what I'm seeing here working backwards. And I'd like you to fill in the gaps. And so you talk about a program that helps people. Let me ask again another question. You're helping people on an organizational side, a spiritual side, a financial side, a theme side, your business. I'm not quite clear what service you provide to your audience.
Well, as my business evolved, like I said, I was in network marketing for a while, failed miserably.
Hmm.
And, because being new, I couldn't teach anybody anything. So I've done
Okay.
affiliate marketing and several other ventures. And in that process, I've learned a lot about marketing and advertising.
Hmm.
So, I usually help with people one-on-one, teams. And that's why I got out of network marketing, because there are people, you have a team. Some people, they're going to do what you say. Some people are not going to do it, but then they'll blame you. Oh, this thing doesn't work. And I'm like, well, did you do the work? Did you do the homework? Well, I didn't have time. Well, I mean, what am I supposed to do?
Hmm.
I cannot, like lead a, what you say, lead a horse to water, can't make them drink. It's that kind of thing, So I got out of that. But video has always been a component in everything that I've done. That's why I've gone to what I'm doing now.
Okay. So the type of, well, let me come back to that. What I'm hearing so far, because at some point I will ask Mr. JL if I'm far off track, because if I am, then anything I say behind that has no value. So let me share with you my observations. And what comes to mind is, first off, at the beginning, you were young, you say you were service focused, and I asked how that came about. Well, at some point, single parent household, mother had to be a provider, couldn't be a full-time nurturer, clear on that concept. And although you weren't the only child, and you weren't the firstborn, your older sister was 7 years beyond you in life and had her own thing going on. So there's you and the cluster behind you on top of that. And so someone had to cook the food, had to oversee the younger ones, the young enough to dress them perhaps, to wash them perhaps.
Yeah.
And so there was something that became a part of your lifestyle because that was the nature of the demand.
Yeah.
And having lived that life also, I get it. It becomes a normal process for you. Having said that, and then again, single parent household, I'm going to make an assumption. Money was not flowing through the environment here. So you
Uh-huh.
took up jobs such as cutting grass.
Mhm.
And where did you grow up? What part of the country?
I live on the East Coast, North Carolina, little town
Okay,
called
so
Cincinnati.
maybe not too much snow. When I was younger, I took up shoveling snow in the wintertime when the
No.
grass wasn't growing. So that's Carolina. It wasn't something that was a part of your lifestyle. I get that, but
Every now and then we get snow, but
I hear
yeah.
that. But the common factor is doing something to make money.
Yes.
And so it wasn't all pure gold. You got on the raw side of society, as you've alluded to.
Mhm.
And I get the impression, and you, number one, number two, you had a family that had a history of entrepreneurship, of
Yes.
building businesses.
Yes.
And to be quite blunt about it, for somebody of color to have an environment that you can build your own business successfully, back in the day even, not very common to happen, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So my hat off to the family on that. So you had somewhere in the back of your sense of who you are, you have examples of people that provided a business building concept, which is a really distinct philosophy. Now, having said that, and maybe that's part of what got you into the cutting the grass format, perhaps, that
Yeah.
the sense of earning money, making things happen.
Yeah. Well, my mother, I wanted things.
Hmm.
And she was like, look, I provide the basic necessities. If you want these other things, you're going to have to go out and earn some money. And the one thing I didn't know how to do well was cut grass. So
Hmm.
I would cut my mother's grass, and I'd walk around the neighborhood with a rake and a gas can and just knock on doors. Ma'am, I see your yard. It looks high, cut for it. And I was only making $5 a yard back then.
Well, excuse me. I don't. The word "only," I disagree with that. When I go to a restaurant, not about me, for lunch, I'll say only one, and I'll say no. You have one more than you had 3 seconds ago. So you were making $5 more than you would have made otherwise if you hadn't been doing it. But
Right.
but I get the number difference on that factor. So we move a little bit further ahead, and you talked about a history of that you were overweight, that people were picking on you
Mhm.
because of that. And maybe or not, that was part of the reason why you went on the dark side of the world around you, perhaps. I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
ask. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Again, folks, this is unrehearsed. I'm doing this from my notes and what I'm observing. So, but something triggered, and maybe it was your continuum through your church involvement.
Mhm.
Something triggered you perhaps on Let's Exercise, how you stumbled across that. I didn't ask you how that happened, but but I'm not going to ask now because we have time. I have to respect. I may come back to that.
Mhm.
But the concept here is that however it happened, you took it not just as a half blip pastime. You took it seriously enough that it made a difference in your image, and you were able to. I have a phrase here that you switched from being bullied to being respected.
Yes.
Because of something that you got involved in.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of the continuum of who you are as a persona, as a personality. And so if you move further down the line, you said you enjoyed the sense of service. I can get that. People appreciate you. As opposed to throwing cuss words at you. I think that could be a nicer flow. There's some positive feedback on that. You had already the history of entrepreneurship in your blood. And you talked about doing MLM or multi-level marketing at one point, but you realized the limitations of it. When you said that, comes to mind, you had your downline, a little red brick schoolhouse. You had kindergarten through 8th grade in one building, and you're trying to, or in one room, you're trying to teach the whole class at different levels. It can be logistically a problem. So you decided to give customized service to your audience, to your market. And as a result of that, and I'll rephrase that, when you become a serious enough bodybuilder to really change your body in a manner that has an impact, implies you're competitive also, as opposed to I'll get around to it when I want to get around to it, if ever at that point. So you push back, and you talk about, again, gaining respect, not just the physical side of it, but also continuing on the, I'll say, emotional, helpful, almost spiritual side of it too, implying that's a deep part of who you are. Am I far off the track at this point in terms of what I'm saying?
You're hitting it right on the nose, brother.
Okay. Well, thank you. And referring to my notes again. So the issue of being appreciated, the issue of wanting to give value, the issue of having had a life where people perhaps felt not a part of the system, perhaps being, in a metaphorical sense, beaten on, that you have a commitment to want to make a difference in that person's world. And when you talk about the issue of you give value, then go for the sale. Now, it's not quite what I'm saying. Somebody asked me once, I'm giving advice, and it was in that person's ears and mine, very good advice. And the lady said to me, "You're giving a lot of good advice. In fact, why would you give so much good advice for free?" And I said, if you like the free version, imagine what the paid version must be like. So I think that's kind of where you're going with your program also. That you believe in giving value because it is a competitive world around you. And the anti-guru concept, when I first saw it, I had no idea what it meant, but now I think I understand it, because much of what you've done through a significant part of your life was having to push back.
Yes.
And seeing what didn't work for a lot of people who were being pushed on. And so as a result, you've taken up that cause, and rather than just talk the talk, you walk the talk. So let me give something of value to you up front so you can appreciate it. And you make a decision, not because I badgered you, beaten down on you. Does that make sense what I'm saying in terms of where you are?
Oh, definitely. You're just pulling it like it's like you're in my brain.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the anti-guru, to me, it's like my hot seat challenge. It's a deliberate push for those that don't like it, don't waste my time. For those who feel that, rephrase that, people go against the system, lots of tattoos. Maybe you go, is that word gothic or whatever? Everything you wear is black lipstick and black makeup and that kind of thing. Well, I don't hear you doing that. What you do is you provide a value back in terms of skill, of service, of concept. So that's kind of your anti-establishment that had laughed at you when you were the fat kid on the block syndrome. And so that's intriguing. So you say you work one-on-one with people and what you do?
Yeah, I will always give people a free consultation in because I do YouTube advertising and marketing now. So that's what I do. But I did that before when it was just online marketing.
Right.
Like I said, this concept of giving it comes out of a scripture that says, "Give and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together." So
Hmm.
again, spirituality defines every area of my life.
Okay.
My definition of success is the beneficial footprint that I leave on society. How many people have I helped? How many lives have I changed? It's not
Hmm.
about money. Money, cars, houses, all of these things are just markers. But true success to me is changing lives. If I help someone create success, whether it's monetary or whatever, and their lives are better, then that's a win for me.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily have to get paid all the time for that, but of course, I do like to make a little money.
Still, my rule number one: keep the creditors happy, no matter how else you look at that. I get that concept. Besides keeping the family healthy and intact, of course. Now, I hear what you're saying, and my concept would be: I hear a lot of people who talk the talk that you talk about, and I hate to use the same word more than one time in one sentence.
Mhm.
But what I see different about you, it's not something you picked up because it was a good course to take in school,
Right.
or maybe even because a good friend brought you into the industry. You
Mhm.
grew up this philosophy. It's your legacy of who you are, the person.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what makes a person unique. And I'm convinced that many potential clients, well, first off, unless we're AT&T, MCI, Sprint, we never have a budget for marketing purposes. I get that concept.
Mhm.
However, that being said, I think the real issue is because limited funding is part of your package as a business owner, you don't want to waste it. And one is concerned that one will spend it bad money in a bad environment, maybe having done it already.
Mhm.
Well, I say to the audience, what I'm getting from you, and again, this is my concept of one secret sauce, is this is not something artificial by you. It's not made up by you. That your presentation of what you provide is heartfelt in terms of who you are,
Yes.
as opposed to being a skilled marketing technique.
Right.
So for those people who have desire to build their business in a manner that they're not quite there yet doing on their own, they have money if they think it's going to be well spent, or if they even if they don't have money, they feel they want to grow their business and they see the value of putting an outside service a concept like yourself, somebody not just not talks the talk, you actually walk the talk,
Mhm.
that I could see you being an ideal person, an ideal agent for people who really do feel that you can almost with a badge of honor that I'm going to go against the system to be successful. And you almost have to do that. If you follow the system, you'll get worn down by it. So what are your thoughts in terms of closing us out? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Joseph, you hit it right on the head. I want to provide value. I remember what it was like when I was struggling. There was a time when I had to sell my car to keep my business going.
Hmm.
And you put your blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And there are lots of people out here who, they're all about the money. And if they can't make money off of you, they're not interested.
Hmm.
And of course, like I said, I do want to earn some income. I've got a wife. I've got all the things that everyone else has. However, um, like I said, and this great marketer, Zig Ziglar, he used to say, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll always be able to get what you want, which just goes back to that Bible principle. So
Hmm.
everything is from my spirituality.
Right.
And when I do my YouTube consulting and advertising, a lot of times I was talking with a young lady just the day before yesterday. She wants to do it, but I said, look, don't start doing paid advertising. Build your audience up organically and do the research, and then
Hmm.
you come back to me, and now
Right.
you have something to work with.
Hmm.
You know. But some people are they like, you need to close the deal. I used to work in the mortgage business. My manager used to mad at me because I wouldn't charge an exorbitant amount of money. I'm like, well, this is these people's equity in their home. I'm not going to just take it just because I can.
Hmm.
You know, and that's my concept. I'm relatively inexpensive compared to some of my contemporaries, but again, I don't feel the need to take money from people just because you always pay for what you don't know. That's a given.
Right.
Just because you don't know, when you leave me, you're going to have a working knowledge of what I do. So if you decide you don't want to employ me anymore, you can do that. Now you won't have the level of expertise that I have because I've been doing this for 13 years, but you can have a working knowledge.
I hear that. You make the comment that you're relatively inexpensive. My counterpoint to that to be if somebody charges more money or even less money and it doesn't serve their purpose as a client, then it's an exorbitant price.
True that. True that.
So on the value side,
yeah, I just don't pay. I just don't charge, 10 times what I'm worth just because somebody doesn't know that.
I hear that, but I'm going to interrupt because we're about to close out here. That anybody could say they're relatively inexpensive, they're concerned. Those are catchphrases. My program is helping you discover your secret sauce. At least an ingredient of it is you walk your talk. This is a legacy of you. It's not something you've come by as a marketing technique, a marketing tool. And so for those in the audience that feel the same way I feel about it, that there's no paid advertising going on here, that this is something that they would want to give you serious consideration about. So look at the links regarding him. If you'd like to be a guest on my hot seat challenge environment, please reach out to me, show your comments to me, to Mr. JL. We do get back to you on auditing, and please subscribe also. Thank you, JL, for being part of this program.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. Take care, folks. See you next time.